Warning: the content of this book is very graphic and very dark. Do not read if you cannot stomach graphic violence or explicit intimacy. Hyacinth, age 15. Daddy. I sputtered and coughed in the upstairs hallway, lungs already dangerously full of smoke. The fire crackled all around us, my childhood home going up in flames. My father gripped my shoulders tightly, painfully, giving me a little shake. The eyes of his wolf glowed with fury and hate. Not at me, but for the Alpha who had come to destroy him. The monster intent on cutting us all down and wreaking havoc, until not a person or a possession remained. My father yelled to be heard over the roar and crackling of wood around us. Get back, Hyacinth. Go to Luca at the safe house. Go now. Run.
No, Daddy.
I wailed again, tears streaming down my face. I didn't want to leave him. He was hurt. I could smell it. Blood from several deep claw and bite wounds wafted into the air. The scent of iron oxide, a byproduct of his leaking life fluid, combined with the oppressive stench of carbon dioxide released by the flames, burning my sensitive nose. I could barely breathe, his beautiful face twisted, the depth of his agony severe. Tears trailed down his dirty cheeks. His voice cracked. I love you, princess. I stared at him in disbelief. The wolf who had been the strongest, the fiercest warrior in our pack. That same wolf who had indulged his little girl. Let me dress him up for tea parties with my bears. Sang me silly songs every night before bed. That man, the one I loved more than any other person in the world, was saying goodbye to me. Forever. He knew his fate. He accepted it. But I didn't think my young heart would survive. And that's when I saw him. The monster. The Alpha of adamant Moon Leander. The subject of legends and horrors. Violence so brutal, his own men struggled to stomach the aftermath of his rage. The brutality left in his wake like a demon, straight from the churning pits of hell. The Alpha appeared at the top of the stairs. He stood at the end of the long hallway, nostrils flaring. My father spun to face the threat, shoving me behind him at the same time, but I had gotten a glimpse of the Deathbringer. The image seared into my brain. Alpha Leander was bigger than life, chest so broad he filled what remained of the charred hallway. Sinewy muscles flexed and contracted with each ragged breath. Pitch black hair shined like mica even with the clinging dirt and falling bits of debris. A short, neatly trimmed 5 o'clock shadow, goatee and mustache framed the sharp-edged cleft of his jaw and emphasized his straight nose and high-crested cheeks. His face was made up of angles, all hard and severe. And all man hands fisting the back of my father's shirt. I trembled uncontrollably and peeked around him, survival instinct kicking in, not willing to take my eyes off of a predator of Leander's caliber. The glowing eyes of his wolf, a shocking mixture of cerulean and amethyst, swirled brightly, only focused on his target, my father, Alpha of the Diamant Pack, as he strode toward us, death and destruction burning in his eyes. And then his gaze flickered to me, and he froze, eyes widening in shock. Mate! He mouthed the word, but no sound came out. Time crashed to an abrupt halt. My head spun, and I was sure my heart would stop right there as I crouched behind the massive protective frame of my father. It couldn't be true. I would not accept it. I was still a child of 15, for heaven's sake. Not even shifted yet. And he was clearly a man. I'd heard tales of the young 20-year-old Alpha who'd taken over his father's pack 6 months ago after his mother died. Rumor had it his father could no longer manage the stress of running the pack, in addition to his heartache at the loss of his mate. His father was known to be a cruel man, but Leander's tales of destruction made his father look like a teddy bear in comparison. Leander's violence was unmatched and unparalleled. His thirst for blood unsated and wanting. It felt like minutes, but only seconds had gone by since Leander appeared at the top of stairs and now stood frozen. His beautiful face twisted in confusion. My father roared. No. You will never have her. He shifted and threw himself at the other Alpha, snarling and biting and clawing at the same time. My muscles coiled tight with adrenaline. I exploded into action. I ran in the opposite direction, hurling through the wreckage, down 2 flights of stairs and whipping around the corner. My life was in danger. The fire and smoke inhalation could kill me. But that was nothing compared to the horror of my new reality if that beast of an Alpha captured me. Oh no. The chant pounded through my head, ringing in my ears. I refused to believe he could be my mate. I'd felt nothing when our eyes connected. Nothing. But the tumultuous expression in his cerulean eyes spoke the truth. Leander had felt everything. And I couldn't deny the look that came over his face for just a split second when his lips formed the word, mate. In that 1 second, his features had transformed into a transcendent glow. And then poof! Just like that, it disappeared. His expression snarled even fiercer, angrier at the cruel reality right in front of him. The daughter of his enemy was his mate. He left no doubt in my mind. He was no happier about it than I. For just a blink, I wondered if maybe his hatred would be enough for him to let me go, to reject me. But even as I formed the thought in my head, I knew better. Not only had his face flickered into a glimpse of hope, but there had been undeniable possessiveness. His wolf would have his mate no matter what it cost me. No way. No way in hell. I ran faster. Seconds were all I had before the monster broke through the protective barrier of my father's wolf. A bitter reality washed over me. I had only seconds to escape, but my father had just seconds left to live till the very end. He sacrificed his life to protect me. My young heart broke under the crushing weight of truth. I would never see him again. My steps faltered when I thought about that. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from wailing. Not now. I forced the torturous thoughts away, shutting off my brain. I couldn't do this now. Not if I wanted to live. Getting emotional was a luxury I didn't have. Breaking down would have to wait. My freedom was at stake. And I would rather die than be taken by that monster. My father had prepared an evacuation plan for me, my mother and brother, as well as his most trusted beta and his beta's mate, in the event our pack was compromised beyond repair. My mind whirled with his instructions, my body on autopilot. 3 more steps and I reached the kitchen, located at the back of the house, positioned right over the cement bunker. I threw open the back door to make it appear as if I'd run out that way, and then I flew into the large walk-in pantry, closing the door behind me. Diving to the floor, my fingernails scraped along the wood, feeling for the security latch. It clicked open. Lifting the lid just enough to shimmy my body through, I agilely dropped the remaining 8 feet to the floor below. The fall didn't hurt me. Even though I had yet to shift, I had vigorously trained my entire life. My father had insisted on it, making me surprisingly formidable for my small frame. The door settled in place above my head, and I heard the latch re-engage. The avenue of my getaway wasn't noticeable unless you were looking for it, and would probably be under a pile of debris soon, making it impossible for Leander to find. Snaking my way through the dark and damp cellar, I opened the small door to the underground tunnel that led almost a mile, all of the way up the mountain. It was at that moment I heard him race across the floor above me and out the back door. A second of relief rippled through my body. I'd successfully eluded him. But then my reprieve was gone. I still had a long way to go to get freed. I flew through the utterly black tunnel, my extrasensory nose and eyes leading the way. The moist scent of the earth combined with the aged wood of the support beams scratched my throat. My nose wrinkled at the damp smell of mildew. But it was 100 times better than the oxygen-deprived, stifling smoke-filled house from which I'd come. I focused on slowing down my panicked breathing. In. Out. In. Out. I was fast. It would take less than 4 minutes for me to reach the safe house. And if he were alive, Luca would be waiting for me. Not blood by birth, my adopted brother was 5 years older than me. But even with the age gap, Luca had always been my best friend. I'd followed him around like a relentless puppy from the time I was 4 years old. And he allowed it. Even during his turbulent and hormonal transition from a juvenile into an adult wolf, he indulged the little she-wolf who idolized him. Panting, I reached the end of the tunnel and flung open the door. My heart burst in my chest when my eyes found him. Luca jumped from his crouched position, where he'd been staring at the door, waiting for it to open, and snatched me into his arms. All of the air whooshed out of him as he exhaled. Thank fuck. My trembling in his arms quickly turned into full-blown shaking. He held me tighter. It's going to be okay, Sen. I'm going to get you out of here. I swear on my life.
Lucky.
I whispered the nickname I'd given him when I was 5, my voice breaking. What about Mom? Did you see her? Is she coming? He fell silent. I pushed against his chest. He released his tight hold, giving me some room but didn't let go completely. I studied his sorrow-filled face, absinthe green eyes unfocused, haunted by whatever memory he'd witnessed. His bottom lip quivered and my heart broke. He never cried. I knew the answer. And my loss was his loss. My pain was his pain. My mother had been the only mother he'd ever known. He rasped, I'm sorry. No. A pitiful barely there wail came from my lips. I didn't have the strength for anything louder. I truly was an orphan now. We both were. Lucky clutched me again in a bear hold, chest rising and falling with his tears. After a long moment, I pulled back and swiped the moisture from my face with my sleeve. I looked up at him. I had to know. Who did it? Who killed her? Violence contorted his expression, green eyes shifting to the dark pine orbs of his wolf as he spat. That bastard Alpha. I watched him break her neck and then tear out her throat. The sicko even smiled as he did it. I inhaled sharply, fear causing a full body shudder to rack up and down my spine. I could barely catch my breath. It's him. Am I mate? Luca's expression blackened. A hiss of disbelief came from his chest. You're what? My mate, I whispered. I swayed unsteadily on my feet, feeling lightheaded. My belly churned, and I forced down the bile that wanted to spew from my throat. Leander he saw me. He said I was his mate. No fucking way. Luca snarled as if intent on changing the moon's mind. His fingers dug deeper into his grip on my arms. I didn't think he even realized he was doing it, but my pinched expression must have clued him in because he abruptly relaxed his hold. He rubbed my arms for a second and then turned to pace across the floor. Sin, this is bad. He's not going to give up looking for you. Ever. We can't stay here. Not even for the night. His words rang true. I sank down into a nearby chair at the wooden table and bit my lip, trying to control my emotion. Where will we go? He made another circuit around the floor, absent-mindedly pulling his shoulder length, dark blonde hair out of the band, holding it tight at his neck, and shook out the wavy locks as he always did when he was thinking through a problem. He turned to face me, his expression controlled. You know we can't go to another pack. I know, I whispered. Fate had chosen I was to be a lone wolf, but it wasn't right to drag Luca into that lifestyle, not if he didn't have to. Wolves suffered without the companionship of a pack. I didn't know how I was going to live and survive on my own, but I'd do whatever it took to save Luca from the same horrible destiny. I worked to make my voice firm. I can take it from here. There's no need for you to live that life. Any of the other packs would take you in. The Alpha isn't looking for you. You'll be safe. His eyes narrowed, a growl ripping from his throat. What the fuck nonsense is that? It isn't nonsense and you know it, I snapped back. I had to make my brother see reason. You still have a mate out there. You need to be in a pack to find her, not traipsing around the country with me. Staying with me will only hurt you. My tongue felt thick, barely able to swallow around the boulder in my throat. Stay strong. I coached myself. If I broke down, there'd be no chance of him walking away. Although as I looked at him now, jaw tight, eyes piercing, I already knew his answer. And when he made up his mind, he was even more stubborn than me. He crossed the room and sat at the table facing me, our knees almost touching. I let him take my hands, which were still shaking. He spoke softly, but there was no confusion. He wasn't giving me a choice. We go together. We stay together. I looked down at our joined hands, unable to speak, and just nodded. Good girl, he soothed. We'll go north. We'll find a remote town tucked away from the rest of civilization, and close to the mountains. There are still a lot of territories not claimed by who was my mate. I pushed out every emotion, leaving me numb and focused on the task at hand. Lucky saw my change in demeanor and recognized it for what it was. That's it, he coached as he quickly stood to his feet and wrapped his hair back tightly at his neck. We each grabbed our bug-out bags made specifically for us. They contained survival gear, food, clothing, cash, and an alternate identity to get us far away from here. Slinging it over my shoulder, I followed Lucky out the back entrance where several vehicles were waiting. He called over his shoulder. Car or motorcycle? I looked at the selection. A car would be convenient in case of rain, but the motorcycles would give us more flexibility and speed, particularly if we had to go off-road. Motorcycle. He gave a nod of agreement, and then glanced down at my outfit of torn jeans and t-shirt. His brow furrowed. You're gonna need to change first. Oh, right, I mumbled and dropped the bag, digging around until I found a black leather racing outfit. Lucky turned and strode over to the waiting motorcycle, giving me some privacy while I shimmied out of one outfit and into the other. When I finished, I grabbed a helmet and leaped onto mine. I'm done. He glanced over, head already concealed inside of a shiny black helmet. He flipped up the visor, absent eyes assessing me. Are you going to be okay driving that thing? That thing was a Ducati 1098S motorcycle, currently purring beneath me. I was only 15 but had been riding since I was old enough to walk. I gave him a determined nod. Rolling forward up the winding path, he called over his shoulder. Does that bag have a valid driver's license for you? Oh, I hadn't considered that. We didn't have time to stop and look. I gritted my teeth. I don't know. Okay, don't get pulled over. We need to avoid a police chase if at all possible. I rolled my eyes. Just try to keep up. Will do, Sin. Will do. His words cut off as we progressed onto the nearby dirt road. 10 miles later, the dirt road turned into pavement. It was nighttime, and we were already far from the city. Lucky nodded to me and cut off his headlights. I did the same. With a simple twist of my wrist, the sharp rev of engines could be heard, accelerating us at a shocking pace. As we both leaned down and increased speed, keeping our bodies tight against the frame of the motorcycles, eliminating as much wind resistance as possible, that we flew through the inky blackness, the moon hiding behind thick clouds. At speeds close to 150 miles per hour. Neither of us needed light to see. We could go much faster and were less noticeable in the pitch dark. After several hours, the adrenaline began to wear off. It looked like we had gotten free, at least for now. And my brain was right back to the family I'd lost, and the pack I'd left behind. How many had died? Did any survive? The motorcycle hummed a melody of vibration in my body while my tears flowed freely, washing down my face, wetting the black leather vest I wore, before they were whipped away by the wind. All gone, everything just gone in the tiny span of a few hours. My life had been reduced to a pile of rubble and putrid ash, simmering with leftover hot spots, occasional bursts of smoke shooting into the air only to be immediately dispersed and carried away by the northeastern wind. And all of those things a little girl collected and loved were lost forever. My diary and art journal, filled with musings and colorful drawings, random whimsies of a young mind. Ticket stubs from every fair and carnival and movie, any event, really, I'd ever attended. My favorite stuffed animal, a black wolf with white markings, 2 front paws, and the tip of his tail looked like they'd been dipped in white ink. My mother gave him to me when I was 4. At the time, the stuffed animal had been almost as tall as I. I'd squealed and wrapped my little arms around the plush toy, barely saying thank you, before running up the stairs to my room to play. At the still tender age of 15, I'd outgrown my dolls and stuffed animals. But not my wolf. Never my wolf. He'd slept by my side every night, protecting me always. Until now. Now he was simply gone, just like everything else, as if he'd never existed in the first place. Along with my mother and father. More tears splashed from my eyes, my chest aching with the strain. Luca navigated his bike closer, close enough to reach out and place a hand on my fingers clutching the throttle. He'd known I'd been crying for hours. His sensitive wolf nose could smell my tears. He was hurting just as much as me. I gripped his fingers tight for a moment, before letting go. I had to pull myself together if I was going to make it out of this alive. And in one piece. Leander's POV, why? I roared out my frustration and prowled across the room like a caged animal, then back again, stopping only to hurl a bottle of 100-year-old scotch across the room at a bookcase. I watched the glass break, amber liquid saturating the books, and yelled at the top of my lungs. Why her? Why couldn't it be anybody but her? Clearly the moon had it out for me, the sly bitch. Because there was no more hilarious mistake than making that female my mate. My father sat reclined in a comfortable chair, utterly unaffected by my foul mood. When he could get a word in edgewise, he asked evenly, "Are you ready to tell me why you're having a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old and destroying the study?" I growled and flashed Fong. Instantly, he was on his feet and in my face, a sustained growl reverberating in his chest. Even in his 50s, the man was cut with rugged bulk and muscle, hewn and cultivated over 30 years as Alpha of Adamant Moon. He was respected and he was feared. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to duke out my frustrations at the present moment. I could beat him, but it would be painful. And bloody. I sighed heavily, a signal that I was currently not interested in a fist fight, but I might take him up on it later, Should my frustration push me over the edge, he gave a short nod as if understanding all of that nonsense in my head without me speaking, and returned to his chair. He sipped his whiskey and used the back of his hand to wipe away any remaining droplets of alcohol from his salt and pepper beard. I stared at him in contemplation, dark eyes glazed over, not seeing the glass in his hand as he absent-mindedly brought it to his mouth. He was a contradiction, brute strength, yet irreparably damaged. Because no matter his continued powerful physique, the loss of his mate, my mother, haunted his eyes and vexed his soul, leaving him a shell of his former self. At least, he'd had a mate he loved, I thought bitterly. The joke was on me. I had no love for my mate. Just a festering disgust and distaste in my mouth that I wanted to spew out, but couldn't quite get rid of. What the hell was I going to do with her when I finally had her? I was so fucked. And then I stopped, my mind rolling over potential scenarios. A wicked smirk curled on my face that I might hate her, but I also might get delicious satisfaction in using up her hot little body to satisfy my deepest carnal desires. Maybe I'd keep her on a pretty little collar, leashed to my bed. She didn't have to be my mate. She could be my little whore instead. And when I was done using her until she gave me the only thing she was truly good for, an heir, I would toss her aside or kill her, or whatever was convenient for me at the time. Yes, that was a much better idea. Of course, I could do none of that until I captured her. And then I would also have to wait until she became of age for anything physical, because no matter how big of a prick I was, I had zero interest in touching juvenile she-wolves. Fuck. At this point, I didn't even know her name, let alone her age. She had to still be in her teens. Her innocence had been too evident, too pronounced to be otherwise. I wondered if she'd even shifted yet. My wolf rumbled his appreciation. He liked her untouched innocence. He licked his lips at the thought of running his tongue over that sweet flesh when we made her ours. I rolled my eyes and told him to get a grip. We still had years to wait, however. That didn't mean I couldn't enjoy torturing her in the meantime. Nothing too painful for now. More humiliation than anything else. Maybe the collar idea wasn't so bad. Not chained to but I could find some suitable place to put her on display as my little pet. So many possibilities. My father pulled me out of my dark fantasies. Do you want some company for the conversation you're having in your head, or not? I turned to face him, voice razor-edged with sarcasm. Okay. Here it is. My mate. Wanna guess who she might be? Intelligent eyes narrowed as he studied me. He may have willingly stepped down from his alpha position, but his intense gaze was still a bit unnerving, particularly when he knew and understood everything about me. I shifted my stance. After a moment he said slowly, "So you finally found your mate. Why so distressed?" I grunted a humorless laugh. Distressed is a teensy bit of an understatement. Livid might be a more accurate portrayal of the chaos in my head right now. Because the young lady in question is none other than the daughter of the late, great Alpha of the Diamant Pack. That caught his attention. He sat forward, dark brown eyes boring into mine. His anger and fury glimmered on the surface, a result of our long-time feud with the Diamant Pack. He'd fought against them many years before I had. A slow, tense moment went by, as if he was waiting for me to admit it was all a sick joke. I wish. When that didn't happen, he sat back and he exhaled heavily. Shit. Indeed. I snapped at he was too angry to be concerned with my sarcasm now that he ground his teeth together. Leander, you have to reject her. Send her away, or imprison her if you can't kill her. But she cannot be your mate. I spoke softly, the burden of the situation wearing hard on my shoulders. You know I can't do that. It isn't just my future at stake here. You know the potential for the pups that could be conceived through the power of our claiming ceremony. Not just mine, but mated pairs who might otherwise never have an opportunity. He shook his head, lip twisted in a snarl. He hated the idea as much as I did, but he remained silent. He knew I spoke the truth. This opportunity was rare. Came around once every generation. And only when the Alpha successfully claimed his rightful Luna, no other wolf would do that. It was the one. And only time the mated pairs of the pack could conceive without their females being in heat. Pure magic for those wolves who were unable to achieve heat or had tried multiple times without success. And the pups conceived during the claiming ceremony were different. They were more powerful, had more strength. Some even had unique gifts. All pups were cherished, but these pups were coveted. Even just a handful of them could change the future of the pack. The process was physical and raw and messy, but a responsibility I took seriously. That as soon as I marked my female, the clock started ticking. She would go into heat exactly 4 weeks later. When her heat began, we would be sequestered and alone in a small cottage. There was no need to reinforce it to keep out any unmated males because the entire pack of mated pairs would gather around the exterior, protecting and waiting, listening. And when they heard their Luna's first cries of orgasm, their celebration would begin. Inside the cabin, my Luna and I would engage in a 3-day fuckfest. Not only would I come inside of her to create our pup, but we would work to ensure that our combined essences, hers and mine together, were spread over our skin. Arms, legs, torso, everywhere we could.